I felt it is extremely important for us in India to understand, what is in store, how things are going to unfold. And since we are talking about India at 75, shaping India at 100, which is the next 25 years, I'm taking the liberty to, even gaze a little more into the future, because Parag's scenario is 2020, 2070, 50 years, and it's mainly in the area of climate change. He basically talks about how climate change is going to affect the various geographies of the world, and with that, how human populations, ethnic groups, nations, what have you, will start moving and churning. And over the next 5 decades, what can we expect the world to look like? Within that, we have almost 1/6 of the world's population living in a very, very small geographic area called India, with boundaries of mountains and the sea, which makes us feel very secure and safe in our enclave. But, is it as safe as it looks? That's what I want to basically start discussing with Parag. Parag, without getting into, any further, maybe anyway you can sort of have your own, way to lace in whatever you have, besides what I ask you. I'm going to basically, start off with one question to you, Parag. You say in your latest book, with every 1 degree increase in temperature, 1 billion people will be uprooted. India will bear the brunt of the climate catastrophe like no other major nation, purely because of the population, and also the fact that India, in his estimate, in his, wherever he's quoted it out of, shows India to be in one of the very, very badly hit climate zones of the future. And we have so much of population. And India is landlocked in the north with impenetrable terrain. Historically, it has limited Indians to literally not able to go and search for better pastures, greener pastures. So aren't we staring at being locked up in an inhospitable compound? While you make a case that the future is brown, how really can 1 billion Indians aspire to live in conducive climate niches of the future? More so when the average Indian youth is much poorer than the global average on almost all respects. Over to you.
Thank you so much, MK. Greetings, everyone from Singapore. Wish that I could have been with you today, but I'm delighted to join in this conversation, and congratulations on this occasion and looking forward to the next 25 years. It's very much the topic that I would like to contribute to in this discussion. And indeed, we cannot have conversations today about the future of the world economy, about the future of governance, about the future of geopolitics, without taking climate change into account. I could have continued to write books about geopolitics and globalization, completely agnostic to climate effects. But as you know very well, climate change is laying bare our false hopes and false predictions about the trajectory for our economies and for many other areas where we have tried to be more confident because of its dramatic acceleration. Now, this is an appropriate time to be having this conversation also because of COP26. A lot of promises were made at the COP26 summit. And immediately after they were made, 2 things were pointed out. Number one, they are very far in the future, while people are already suffering today. And second of all, many countries are actually still lying, quite frankly, about their carbon accounting, so to speak. Just how much are they really reducing emissions? And the numbers that matter when you have a COP26 summit are financial commitments and technologies that are being deployed. But the only number that matters at the end of the day is the atmospheric concentration of carbon emissions. And that number is getting from bad to worse. And if we look at, indeed, the geographies where humankind has very comfortably settled, it has been between 20 and 30 degrees north latitude. Or you can even go down to the equator and 10 degrees. But basically between 0 and 30 degrees latitude is where the vast majority of the human population is concentrated. But if you look at this map, for example, this map is showing you what the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, this is their forecast for what happens to the shifting suitability for human habitation of the world as temperatures rise. Places in red become less suitable, places in green become more suitable. Now, before talking about India, let me make a statement about what a profoundly ironic, violently ironic picture this presents. As you may know, MK, the world population is reaching a plateau. You know, India's population is large, China's population is large, but in North America, in Europe, in Russia, in Japan, populations are already shrinking. We have effectively reached the peak humanity, as I call it. The largest number of people that will ever live, ever, are basically alive today. And look at the places that are green, the places that are becoming more livable and more habitable over time, where it's even getting better due to climate change, have fewer and fewer and fewer people. And the places that are turning red, like India, like the Gulf countries, like much of Africa, like much of South America, have the most people. MK, there is not a greater irony on the planet Earth today, not even the profound and grotesque inequality of the world's economy. There is nothing as perverse as this fact. And this will hit home. This will hit home every single day for the rest of our lives, everyone in this room, everyone watching. Every day, people in the world are suffering from the effects of this fact. So now let's talk about India, because we have a very particular, peculiar geography as the subcontinent, surrounded by water, hemmed in by the Himalayas, one of the few remaining populations that is still growing, a very young demographic, one of the youngest countries in the world, and yet look at the color that is emerging here, due to, of course, some places stricken by drought, falling water tables. We know some cities have had the zero-day events, such as Chennai, where the groundwater has run out, where the water supply has run out, flooding in parts of the country as well, and so forth. So there is no more important investment that a country can be making for the sake of its own human capital, its own demographic health, than in environmental sustainability. And the answer is not going to come from COP26. The solution is not going to come from Joe Biden, right? The solution is not going to come from Xi Jinping, right? India has to have its own solutions. Every region of the world is a microclimate. Of course, you cannot control what China will do in terms of coal power plants, right? You cannot control OPEC oil production. All you can do is to try to shore up and reinforce your microclimate as India. What can we do in India to desalinate more water, to have more efficient irrigation, to use much more solar power, to have more drought-resistant seeds? On and on and on. The list of possible interventions, technological, social, environmental, to help to prolong the pathway to this fate. We can do those things. India is doing those things. But can you do it fast enough? And the answer is no. You could never invest what it will take, meaning you should be motivated to do more, and more. This is it. This is priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Thanks, Parag. Okay, so that brings me to the second question. Now let us assume a situation. I mean, let's just fast forward in the next 20 years or 30 years. By 2047, India at 100. The climate is worse than what it is right now. And you people in Delhi, I'm from Bombay, and last 2 days I'm finding it difficult in the evening to sort of breathe properly. Now, in 20 years or 25 years, you're going to have things getting even worse. You're going to have water running out in certain cities in the peninsula. You have now cyclones, which are a common occurrence every year on the western coast. Himalayas and the glaciers are almost waiting there to sort of start behaving differently from what it is. At that time, in his book, he talks about mitigation strategies and adaptation strategies. Mitigation strategies is about how to reduce these changes that are happening. What are the behavioral changes that we need to do to ensure that climate change is slowed down or reduced or stopped. Adaptation is what is most likely, because this mitigation is not really going to take everybody together, because everybody's motivation is not the same. If you see, his map that he showed there, most of the people who are decision makers in the world today at the global order are already living in places which are going to not be under any great, in fact, large parts of Siberia and Canada are going to become more livable and more habitable than what they are currently. So therefore,
you were listening to CEO Times Network, M.K. Anand, and also to Parag Khanna, who happens to be the founder of Future Map. And discussion was, of course, around the livability around countries in the coming years because of climate change.